There are men who walk into a room and don't need to say a single word to be noticed by a woman. They're not the youngest, they're not the most handsome, they're the ones who've lived, the ones who are done playing games, and that's exactly why women start playing for them. But here's the painful truth. If you're an older man and you don't spark desire, it's because there's still something in you acting like a boy, like someone who still needs to be chosen instead of doing the choosing. And until you understand that, you'll keep being invisible to them, even if they keep calling you a nice guy. Today I'm going to reveal the 8 clearest signs that you've become that man who throws them off, draws them in, keeps them guessing, and dominates without laying a finger. And believe me, the last sign is the one that's going to change the way you look at yourself in the mirror. I'm Celia, and this is your House of Wisdom. Stay with me until the end. Because if you discover you already have these signs, you won't need to chase any woman ever again. You'll start doing something far more powerful, choosing. Have you ever walked into a place full of young, loud, self-assured men and still felt her gaze stop on you? Not because of your clothes, not your muscles, not your smile, but because of something deeper, older, more masculine. If you've never experienced that, it's because you haven't realized this yet. You're not competing with younger men, you outshine them. And that's the first point of this video, but also the most revealing one. Because as long as you believe your age is a disadvantage, they'll keep winning. But the moment you realize your age is your edge, the competition disappears. The problem is, many older men don't radiate wisdom. They radiate fear. Fear of not being liked. Fear of getting old. Fear of being left behind. And that fear makes them small. It makes them try to look young, talk like teenagers, dress like they're 20, and the only thing they achieve is to fade into the background. Because a woman can sense when a man admires himself, and she can also smell when a man is trying to justify himself. She's not looking for an older man who tries to compete with gym guys. She's looking for one who doesn't need to compete, who's already been there, who's already been the strong guy, the charming guy, the passionate guy, and is now something far more valuable, the man who knows where he's going, the one who doesn't get distracted, the one who doesn't improvise. She might play with the young ones, but she surrenders to the man who doesn't chase her because he, precisely, is the one who poses the biggest threat to her ego. Once, in a session, a 53-year-old man told me he felt pushed aside in his own home. His daughter had younger boyfriends, his wife kept comparing him to more active men, and at work they jokingly called him Uncle. But when I saw him, there was only one thing missing: presence. Not energy, not looks, not youth. Presence. And that presence is born the moment you stop trying to seem like someone and become who you really are. I taught him to stay silent when provoked, to look without reacting, to enter a room without speaking, but with direction. 3 months later, he called to tell me his wife was seducing him again, like in the early years. What changed? Nothing on the outside, everything inside. If you keep measuring your attractiveness by the standards of young men, you've already lost, because you're not here to be liked. You're here to outshine, to make her eyes stay on you without even knowing why. Your age is not your burden, it's your weapon. You're just not using it yet. You've already understood that you don't need to compete with younger men to be desired, that what truly gives you power isn't youth, it's direction. But here comes the part most men overlook. It's not enough to walk with purpose. You also need to know when to stay silent, because female desire isn't triggered by shouting or explanations. It's triggered by presence, by that silence that's not indifference, but authority. And that brings us to the second key point of this video. Your silence carries more weight than their shouting. Most men don't know how to stay silent with strength. They go quiet out of fear, out of exhaustion, out of resignation. But that's not the same. High-value masculine silence isn't passivity. It's strategy. It's emotional power that doesn't need to be displayed. And when you learn to stay silent with intention, you begin to lead effortlessly. Because a woman can resist your words. She can question you, argue with you, provoke you. But she doesn't know how to react when you don't play the game, when you look at her and say nothing. When you wait and don't give in, that's when she starts to doubt, to see you differently, to want you from within the mystery she can't control. In psychology, this is called reactance. When someone feels they can't control your response, their desire for you intensifies. And women, even if they don't admit it, are drawn to the man who doesn't get pulled into their emotional storms, who doesn't yell when accused, who doesn't beg when rejected, who doesn't react when provoked, because they know that man no longer needs to win arguments. He's already won something much more powerful, mastery over himself. Stoicism teaches this with brutal clarity. The man who controls his emotions controls his destiny. And you, if you still get rattled when she ignores you, if you still justify yourself when she lashes out, if you still explain yourself like a boy who wants to be understood, then you haven't woken up yet. Because the true appeal of an older man lies in what he doesn't say, in what he doesn't show, in that tense calm that unsettles, but also attracts. I've seen women tremble in front of a man who simply looks at them in silence after being insulted, not because they're afraid, but because that silence reveals something. They no longer have power over him. They no longer control him emotionally. And for a woman used to getting her way through drama, that's the hardest hit of all. So remember this, if your silence doesn't make an impact, then you're not present, you're absent. But if your silence imposes, then you've reached a higher level of masculinity, one where you no longer beg, no longer argue, no longer react. You simply observe, and from that observation, you decide, because a man who masters his words no longer needs to raise his voice. He just needs to be there for everything to change. Your silence makes an impact, but if after going quiet you start to doubt, you've lost all your power. Because it's not just about staying silent, it's about acting with a certainty that doesn't apologize. And that certainty is born when you stop waiting for female approval, when you no longer need to know if she likes you, accepts you, or chooses you. That's why we've reached the third point of this video, and this is where everything starts to shift. You don't ask if they like you, you make them admire you. Most men are constantly chasing the yes. If she smiles at you, you get excited. If she ignores you, you fall apart. Your emotional state depends on her reaction, but that makes you weak, predictable, easy to manipulate, because a man who seeks approval has already lost his center. And when you're off center, she senses it and loses interest, because a woman doesn't desire a man who waits. She desires the one who makes an entrance, who brings emotion without asking, who doesn't knock to come in, because he's already inside. The strategy is simple but powerful. Stop reading her signals. Start directing your own. Stop analyzing her body language. Start owning yours, not to provoke her, but to affirm who you are. Because when a man walks with purpose, looks with calm, speaks with intention, everything about him becomes a statement. And that statement is this: I don't need you to give me value. I already have it. This isn't shallow seduction. It's deep psychology. It's called projected self-validation. It's the phenomenon where your own belief in your worth changes how others perceive you. If you see yourself as valuable, that value seeps into your words, your movements, your presence. And she, without knowing why, starts to admire you. Not because you said the right thing, but because your presence alone disrupts everything she thought she had under control. Think of the kind of man who walks into a room and doesn't need to smile to be noticed, doesn't need to speak loudly or tell stories or seek eye contact. He's just there, complete, steady, emotionally unreachable, yet deeply magnetic. That man doesn't ask if he's liked. He creates doubt, he stirs intrigue, and in a woman's mind, that's both poison and desire. Because she wants to understand why she can't control him, and that mystery ignites her. So next time you're with a woman, don't seek her approval. Watch how she responds to your energy. If she admires you, you'll know it without words. And if she doesn't, keep walking. Because you're not here to convince, you're here to show. And the man who shows who he is no longer needs to be liked, he just needs to be. before we dive into the next points, if this message is already revealing things no one else has told you, hit like and subscribe now. Drop a comment with the country you're watching from and write this one sentence: I no longer seek approval, because the lessons ahead are going to shake you. And believe me, the last one will mark the difference between being desired by a woman or being remembered as the one who didn't dare. When you stop seeking approval and start living from your own worth, something shifts in you, but also in those around you. Some admire you, others fear you, and many try to make you doubt. Because when a man begins to shine from his center, everything around him starts to realign. But this is where many fall without realizing it. They try to maintain this new version through effort, through constant proving, and that wears them out, breaks them down, betrays them. That's why it's time to talk about the fourth point of this video. You don't need to prove anything, because you've already decided who you are. The most common mistake men make when they start to wake up is this. They think they have to uphold their masculinity with visible gestures. They start using rehearsed lines, moving like they're playing a role, forcing a confidence they haven't built from within. They become a character, a pose, a mask, and sooner or later, it falls off. Because a woman doesn't fall in love with a script. She falls for invisible strength, that energy that doesn't explain itself. That isn't performed, that simply is. This happens because most men were raised to perform, not to be. Since childhood, they've been taught to prove themselves, to be good, to be responsible, to be useful. And that logic carries into relationships. They try to prove they're attractive, desirable, intelligent. But when a woman senses that you're trying to convince her, she can't admire you because she feels you're not in your center, you're orbiting around her. And that, in the female unconscious, makes you disposable. Because if she's the axis, then you're no longer the man, you're the follower. Deciding who you are isn't a visible act. It's internal, it's radical. It's when you no longer doubt your worth, even if no one acknowledges it. It's when you walk with the same certainty in front of a beautiful woman, or one you're not interested in. It's when your tone, your posture, your choices don't change to please. They hold steady because you're no longer seeking impact. You're living from truth. This point is one of the hardest to sustain because there's no immediate applause, no quick validation, no dramatic reactions. There's silence, there's discomfort, there are tests. But if you can get through it, if you can stay centered without proving, if you can simply be without needing to convince, you step into another level. One where you no longer seduce with words, you seduce with your presence alone. And that kind of seduction is the kind women can't handle. So stop performing, stop rehearsing, stop trying to look masculine. Be it, but be it for you, not for them, because the man who needs to prove himself is the man who hasn't decided yet. And as long as you haven't decided who you are, they won't decide to desire you either. You've stopped performing to convince, you've started being from within, but there's still a deeper layer. Because even if you've stopped trying to prove yourself, you might still be carrying a silent poison, the shame of your own body. And that shame is what dims your light from the inside. That's why we've reached the fifth point of this video, and it's this. Your body isn't from the gym, it's from a life of battle. Many older men walk as if they're apologizing for not having six-pack abs, for losing their hair, for carrying wrinkles, scars, fat in the wrong places. They feel like less of a man, less worthy, less desirable. And that guilt shows in how they dress, how they move, how they make love. They hide, they ask for permission. They explain themselves, not out loud, but they carry it on their back. And every time a woman looks at them, they feel judged. When in reality, what she's reading isn't the body, it's the energy. A woman can desire an imperfect body if there's strength behind it, history, presence. What she can't desire is a man who's ashamed of himself, because female desire isn't sparked by aesthetics, it's sparked by direction. And if your body has lived, if it has worked, if it has fought, if it has withstood time, then it holds a kind of value no gym can give you. It's proven you can hold up in the real world. And that, in the female unconscious, weighs more than any defined muscle. This mistake of trying to compete with younger bodies leads to one thing only: frustration. Because no matter how hard you try, you're not going to be 20 again. And you don't need to be. What you need to understand is that your worth doesn't lie in appearance. It lies in what you contain, in being the man who knows where he stands, even if he doesn't meet magazine standards. In being the one who doesn't hide, doesn't explain, doesn't edit himself. Because a woman can sense when a man is showing up, and when he's hiding. And if you're hiding, not because of your body, but because of the energy you carry, you've already lost. Reversing this isn't about dieting or signing up for a gym, though you can if you want to. Reversing this is looking in the mirror without dropping your gaze. It's showering with the door open. It's walking without hunching your shoulders. It's making love without turning off the lights. It's breathing like a man who owes nothing to the world, because you don't owe anything. Your body is not a debt, it's your story. And if you tell it with pride, women won't see fat. They'll see presence. They won't see gray hair. They'll see experience. They won't see age. They'll see direction. The mindset you need to adopt is this: I'm not a body to be judged. I'm a man to be respected. And if you respect yourself with this body, with these marks, with these signs of life, I promise you a woman will start seeing you differently. Not because you changed physically, but because, for the first time, you're occupying your space without apology. Because you're no longer the man who hides. You're the one who shows up, even when it hurts, even when it makes others uncomfortable, because respect isn't begged for, it's embodied, and it starts with the body you carry every day, even if no one applauds it. You've already understood that your body is not a source of shame, it's your territory, and when you inhabit it with pride, something inside you shifts. But it's not enough to inhabit the body. You must also inhabit your walk, your gestures, your gaze. Because the man who still needs to talk about his achievements to feel worthy hasn't yet understood that true respect is never asked for. It's projected. So now we've reached the 6th point of this video, and it's this. You don't talk about your achievements, but they show in every step you take. Picture this. You walk into a room where no one knows you. You don't say who you are. You don't explain what you do. You don't share your battles. And yet, everyone feels something heavier about you. Not because you're aggressive, not because you're charming, but because there's density in your energy, a kind of emotional gravity that makes people notice you, without you trying to be noticed. That can't be bought. It's not found in books. That's earned through lived war and sustained silence. The man who needs to talk about his accomplishments is still in debt to his own self-esteem. Because if you truly believe you're great, you don't announce it, you embody it. And that embodiment shows. It shows in how you walk, in how you greet, in how you stay silent when everyone else is talking. It shows in your impatience for the shallow and your calm in the face of complexity. Women aren't looking for a resume. They're drawn to a man who inspires without needing to explain why. And if you still need recognition, you're still stuck in emotional adolescence. This pattern is lethal, because a man who stays there lives for applause, and when he doesn't get it, he crumbles. One day he feels like a king, the next, like a beggar. And that's how he lives, hanging on to others' reactions, lost between the hunger to be admired and the fear of being forgotten. But that game is exhausting, and worst of all, it doesn't care about your age. You can be 50, 60, 70, and still act like someone who needs mom to clap for every step he takes. Breaking out of that pattern doesn't mean stopping your achievements. It means no longer using them as a shield, as justification. Because if your presence doesn't speak for you, your voice is just noise. What you need is to embody what you've lived, to integrate it, to become the silent evidence of your path. And when that happens, there's no need to say you're strong. Your back already says it. No need to swear you're trustworthy. Your presence already proves it. Because true respect doesn't need to be explained. It's felt. So next time you're in front of a woman, don't try to impress her with what you've done. Let her feel who you are. Because if you don't need to say it, she won't be able to stop noticing it. And that, my dear, That's what drives feminine desire wild. The man who doesn't explain himself because he has nothing left to prove, only presence that commands without a single word. Everything you've learned so far has one purpose: to stop acting like a man waiting to be approved and start living as a man who chooses himself. You've stopped begging, explaining, comparing. You've started walking with weight, with calm, with direction. But there's one more point, one that, if you don't understand it, will make you fall again and again. Because it doesn't matter how much you learn if you still end up giving away your power out of fear of losing her. That's why we've reached the 7th point of this video, and it's this: you don't chase them, you choose them. This is the line that separates the emotionally free man from the domesticated one, and you know exactly which side you've been on, because if you've ever waited for her message, her look, her validation, you've already been her servant, not her man. If you've ever tolerated disrespect out of love, accepted indifference hoping things will get better, or settled for crumbs when you used to feast, you've already given up your dignity. And that, my dear, that shows. But here's something no one told you. You also have the right to choose, to say no, to look at a beautiful woman and not want her if she doesn't respect your presence, to see a young body and decide it's not worth your time if the soul is empty, to enjoy the game without being the one begging to play. Because the man who doesn't get desperate becomes magnetic, not because he's unreachable, but because he knows he's whole. And that kind of man isn't won over with smiles. He's earned through respect. Most older men have been trained to chase, to settle, to be grateful for any attention as if it were a miracle. But that's not you, not now, not after everything you've lived, not after everything you've seen, because every time you chase, you lose. You lose your center, your energy, your mystery, and the most painful loss, your power to choose. Because you're no longer choosing, you're accepting whatever comes, even if it comes with contempt. Choosing isn't being cold, it's being conscious, it's having a filter, it's looking her in the eye and asking yourself, does this woman ignite me or drain me? Does she respect me or use me? Does she awaken me or exhaust me? And if the answer doesn't clearly say she's worth it, then don't insist. Because the man who knows how to choose doesn't beg for love. He generates respect. And that respect begins when you understand that your energy is sacred, and not everyone deserves to enter your world. So stop running after what doesn't choose you. Stop justifying what doesn't excite you. Stop desiring those who don't respect you. Because if you truly see yourself as a man, you're the one who chooses. And they feel that, they know it, they fear it. And if you don't forget it, you'll never again be the one who crawls. You'll be the one who stands his ground. And from there, everything changes. You've already understood that you're not here to chase, but to choose. That a man's power isn't measured by how many women want him, but by how many he chooses not to let in. But there's one final frontier, the quietest, the most decisive. Because you can master everything else and still lose it all if you give in here. We've reached the 8th and final point of this video, and it's this: you don't need them to respect you because you no longer tolerate disrespect. This is the threshold that separates the desired man from the destroyed man, because as long as you're still waiting for a woman to respect you, you're still begging, still yielding, still bargaining with your dignity. And respect, when asked for, is no longer respect. It's pity, it's obligation, it's forced silence. But when you stop tolerating disrespect, it no longer matters whether she respects you or not, because you're no longer there, because you've already walked away, because you've already decided your life is worth more than any bond that degrades you. The concrete action you need to take is this: define your boundaries and make them sacred. Don't explain them, don't argue them, don't bend them when she cries, screams, or promises to change. When a woman crosses the line, even once, you hold firm. And if you need to leave, you leave. Not as punishment, as an act of self-respect. Because if you keep forgiving every insult, every jab, every disregard, then the problem isn't her. It's you who don't value yourself enough to walk away. You who still believe one day she'll change. She won't. Not while you're the one still putting up with it. The mindset you need to adopt is simple, brutal, and final. I'd rather be alone than next to someone who diminishes me. Because when a man lives with that truth at the core of his soul, he becomes an emotional rock. He can't be used. He can't be manipulated. He can't be broken by sex, guilt, or poisoned tenderness. Because he's no longer playing the game of being respected. He is respect, and that changes everything. Don't wait to be acknowledged. Don't beg to be valued. Don't wait for someone to treat you right to feel worthy. Act like the man who has already decided his life is untouchable. And from that place, no woman will be able to use you without paying the price of losing you. Because you're no longer the man who endures. You're the one who draws the line. And from that line, feminine desire gives in. Not out of fear, out of admiration. Because when a man no longer needs to be respected, that's when he finally is. If you've made it this far, you're not part of the crowd. Because not everyone stays to face what hurts. The easy path is to stay asleep, to keep blaming others, to keep acting like a boy dressed as a man. But you chose to stay. You chose to face the truth. And that already sets you apart. Now you have a decision in front of you. Keep being the man who doubts, who tolerates, who bends to be liked. Or become that older man who doesn't need to please to be desired, who doesn't ask for respect because he no longer negotiates it. The choice is yours. No one will make it for you. This video wasn't meant to entertain you. It was meant to shake you, so that you never again walk as if your age were a burden, as if your story were a sentence. Because if you've recognized these 8 signs, then you're no longer in the market of those begging for love. You're in the circle of those who choose, from awareness, from strength, from masculine freedom. Drop a comment below with just 4 words. I no longer hide, and tell me which country you're watching from, because this channel is global, but the awakening is personal. I'm Celia, psychologist, woman, and silent witness to hundreds of men who were dimmed, used, betrayed. This channel exists for them, for you, for every man who once gave everything and still wasn't chosen. Here, at House of Wisdom, we're not here to cry. We're here to remember who we are, to reclaim what time, routine, or the wrong woman made us forget. And if this message hit home, then don't leave without doing something with it. Subscribe now. Join this community of men who no longer ask for permission to be respected. Share this video with that friend who's about to give up. Maybe today he won't have the strength to hear it, but tomorrow he'll thank you for showing it to him. And don't close this video just yet. Watch the 2 that will pop up on your screen. Pick the one that makes you the most uncomfortable. Because right there, in what's hardest to face, is what you most need to hear.